biggest cheers from 50,000 fans go to the immortal star himself, Babe Ruth.
George Herman Ruth Jr. Perhaps no name in baseball history carries more weight, more legend, more pure mythical power than that. The Babe, the Sultan of Swat, the Bambino. We all remember the called shot, the massive frame, that distinctive swing, the towering home runs that seem to defy the laws of physics. The man who hit 714 home runs when most players were lucky to hit 10 in a season. Who revolutionized not just how the game was played, but how America itself viewed its national pastime. But as legend melds into myth over the years, we can lose sight of what he truly managed to accomplish during his playing days. The absolutely staggering raw numbers, including 714 home runs, 2,873 hits, and a .690 slugging percentage that stood as a record for decades. We may remember the highlights, like the time he pointed to center field in the World Series, but we find ourselves forgetting the great stories, like how Ruth started as one of the best left-handed pitchers in the game before becoming the greatest slugger of all time, or how he went from a troubled orphan in Baltimore to literally saving baseball after the Black Sox scandal nearly destroyed the sport. Well, now it's time to jog our memory to appreciate the glory of baseball's most iconic figure. Step right up to the plate with us if you dare, as we explore the incredible journey of the one and only Babe Ruth. When George Herman Ruth Jr. was born on February 6, 1895 in Baltimore, Maryland, nobody could have predicted he would become the most famous athlete in America. His childhood was anything but easy. His father owned a saloon in a rough part of town, and young George was getting into constant trouble on the streets of Baltimore. By age 7, his parents had essentially given up on him, sending him to St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys, a reformatory run by Catholic brothers. It was there that Brother Matthias became the closest thing to a father figure Ruth would ever have. Standing 6'6", Brother Matthias was an imposing presence who taught Ruth discipline, structure, and most importantly, how to play baseball. The young Ruth was a natural athlete, excelling at multiple positions, but it was his left-handed pitching that first caught everyone's attention. At just 19 years old, Ruth was signed by the minor league Baltimore Orioles. His teammates immediately dubbed him Babe because he was Brother Matthias's babe, his protege. The nickname stuck, and baseball history was made. But Ruth's professional career almost ended before it began, when team owner Jack Dunn struggled to pay his players' salaries. That's when fate intervened in the form of the Boston Red Sox. When Babe Ruth joined the Red Sox in 1914, he was primarily a pitcher. And what a pitcher he was! Standing 6'2" and weighing around 215 pounds, Ruth was a powerful left-hander with a devastating fastball and an even more devastating curveball. In his first full season as a starter in 1915, he went 18-8 with a 2.44 ERA, helping lead the Red Sox to a World Series championship. But it was in 1916 that Ruth truly announced himself as one of the game's elite pitchers. He led the American League with a microscopic 1.75 ERA, going 23-12, and establishing himself as arguably the best left-handed pitcher in baseball. That World Series, Ruth pitched a 14-inning complete game victory over the Brooklyn Robins in Game 2, a performance that showcased his incredible stamina and competitive fire. The 1917 season brought even more success, as Ruth went 24-13 with a 2.01 ERA. He was now undeniably one of the top 3 pitchers in all of baseball. But here's where things get interesting. Ruth was also starting to show flashes of his incredible hitting ability. Even as a pitcher, he was drawing attention for his mammoth home runs during batting practice and the occasional pinch-hitting appearance. Then came 1918, a season that would change everything. Due to World War I, the season was shortened, but Ruth still managed to go 13-7 on the mound while also playing 95 games in the field, mostly in left field and first base. And that's when he did something unprecedented. He led the league in home runs with 11. Think about that. A pitcher led the entire American League in home runs. It was unheard of, revolutionary, and it gave manager Ed Barrow an idea that would reshape baseball forever. By 1919, it became clear that Ruth's bat was too valuable to keep in the dugout every fourth day. The Red Sox began using him more as an everyday player, and the results were absolutely staggering. Ruth didn't just break the single-season home run record, he obliterated it. The previous record was 27, set by Ned Williamson way back in 1884. Ruth hit 29 home runs in 1919, shattering the modern record and serving notice that baseball was about to change forever. But Ruth's individual success couldn't mask the Red Sox organizational problems. Owner Harry Frazee was facing severe financial difficulties and needed cash quickly. In what would become the most infamous transaction in sports history, Frazee sold Ruth to the New York Yankees for $100,000 plus a $300,000 loan. The curse of the Bambino was born, and the Red Sox wouldn't win another World Series for 86 years. For the Yankees, however, it was the beginning of a dynasty. Ruth's arrival in New York in 1920 coincided with baseball's desperate need for a savior. The sport was reeling from the Black Sox scandal, where 8 Chicago White Sox players were accused of throwing the 1919 World Series. Baseball needed a hero, someone whose pure love for the game and incredible talent could restore faith in America's pastime. Ruth's first season in New York was nothing short of magical. He didn't just break his own home run record, he destroyed it, hitting 54 home runs in 1920. To put this in perspective, no other team in the American League hit more than 50 home runs that entire season. Ruth alone out-homered 14 of the 16 major league teams. It was a display of power that left fans, players, and sports writers struggling to find adequate words to describe what they were witnessing. The transformation wasn't just statistical, it was cultural. Ruth's arrival coincided with the construction of Yankee Stadium, which would become known as the house that Ruth built. His massive home runs, colorful personality, and larger-than-life presence made him the first true multimedia superstar in American sports history. Kids across the country wanted to hit like Ruth, walk like Ruth, even eat like Ruth. And boy, could he eat. Stories of Ruth's appetite became legendary. He would reportedly consume entire chickens for breakfast, drink beer by the case, and once ate so many hot dogs before a game that he collapsed on the field with what newspapers called the bellyache heard round the world. But somehow, this excess only added to his mystique. Ruth lived life to the fullest, and fans loved him for it. The 1921 season brought even more dominance. Ruth hit 59 home runs, drove in 171 runs, and posted a slugging percentage of .846, a number so astronomical it seemed like a misprint. The Yankees won their first American League pennant, though they would lose the World Series to their crosstown rivals, the Giants. But Ruth had established himself as the undisputed king of baseball. Then came 1927, arguably the greatest individual season in baseball history, and certainly Ruth's masterpiece. Playing alongside Lou Gehrig on what many consider the greatest team ever assembled, Ruth chased his own record of 59 home runs with a nation watching his every at-bat. The pressure was immense, but Ruth seemed to thrive on it. As the season progressed, Ruth's chase became front-page news across the country. Radio broadcasts would interrupt regular programming to announce Ruth's at-bats. Fans packed stadiums just to see if this would be the day he broke his own record. The suspense built through September until finally, on September 30th, 1927, in the Yankees' next-to-last game of the season, Ruth connected off Washington's Tom Zachary for his 60th home run.
On September 30th, the next-to-last day of the season, and needing just one more home run, he faced Tom Zachary of the Washington Senators.
The Babe took a vicious swing at the third pitch ball, and the bat connected with a crash that was audible in all parts of the stand.
The crowd at Yankee Stadium erupted in a frenzy that lasted several minutes. Ruth had done the impossible. He had broken his own seemingly unbreakable record. The 60 home runs stood as baseball's most famous record for 34 years, until another Yankee, Roger Maris, would break it in 1961 under much different circumstances and considerably more controversy. But perhaps Ruth's most famous moment came during the 1932 World Series against the Chicago Cubs. In Game 3 at Wrigley Field, with the Cubs fans mercilessly heckling the aging Babe, Ruth came to the plate in the 5th inning. What happened next has been debated for nearly a century. Did Ruth actually point to center field, calling his shot? The footage is grainy, the witnesses disagree, but what's undeniable is what happened next. Ruth launched a mammoth home run to center field, exactly where he may, or may not, have pointed. Whether he called it or not doesn't really matter. The legend of the called shot perfectly encapsulates who Babe Ruth was. a larger-than-life figure who seemed capable of bending reality to his will through sheer force of personality and incredible talent. As Ruth entered his late 30s, Father Time remained undefeated. The 1934 season saw his numbers decline significantly, and Yankees management, looking to transition to younger players, released their aging superstar. Ruth signed with the Boston Braves, hoping to finish his career where it began, in Boston. The 1935 season was a sad coda to a brilliant career. Ruth hit just .181 in 28 games before retiring in early June. But even in decline, he managed one last moment of magic. On May 25, 1935, at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh, the 40-year-old Ruth hit 3 home runs in a single game, including his 714th and final career home run. A massive shot that cleared the right field grandstand, something no player had ever done at that ballpark. 2 days later, Ruth ended his major league career for good. When he walked off the field for the last time, an era ended, not just for the Yankees and for baseball, but for American culture itself. Ruth finished his career with numbers that still boggle the mind. 714 home runs in an era when most players hit fewer than 10 per season. A .690 slugging percentage that stood as a record for decades. 2,873 hits and a .342 lifetime batting average. He led the league in home runs 12 times, drove in 100 or more runs 13 times, and was a 7-time World Series champion. But statistics can't capture Ruth's true impact on baseball and American culture. He single-handedly changed how the game was played, transforming it from a low-scoring, strategy-heavy contest into the power game we know today. He saved baseball after the Black Sox scandal, restored faith in the integrity of the sport, and became the template for every superstar athlete who followed. In 1936, Ruth was among the first 5 players elected to the National Baseball Hall of Fame, receiving 215 of 226 possible votes. It was a fitting tribute to a man who had given baseball some of its most treasured memories and established records that seemed destined to last forever. When Ruth died on August 16, 1948, at the age of 53, over 100,000 people filed past his casket at Yankee Stadium. It was a farewell worthy of the man who had become larger than the game itself. His number 3 was retired by the Yankees, and his legacy as the greatest baseball player who ever lived was secure. Looking back nearly a century later, it's remarkable to consider what Ruth accomplished. He was a 20-game winner as a pitcher, a record-setting slugger, a 7-time World Series champion, and the first true sports superstar in American history. He transformed baseball from a regional curiosity into America's national pastime, and proved that individual greatness could transcend sport and touch something deeper in the human spirit. When will we see another player dominate their sport so completely that they literally change how the game is played? When will we see another athlete whose personality is so magnetic that they single-handedly save the sport from scandal and restore public faith? When will we see another player whose records stand for decades and whose legends grow larger with each passing year? The answer is simple. We won't. There was only one Babe Ruth, and there will never be another quite like him. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and comment to us on who you want to hear about next. Subscribe for more legendary baseball stories every week. This is Inside Baseball, where we bring you the best of the game.